This is Monocle on Fashion, a show on Monocle Radio offering global perspectives and nuanced conversation on the worlds of fashion and style. I'm Natalie Theodosi, your host and Monocle's fashion director. For today's episode, we are happily installed back at our London base after nearly 3 weeks of shows in Milan and Paris, and we wanted to take a look back at what was meant to be one of the most pivotal seasons for the fashion industry, with a total of 15 designer debuts. To unpack everything that happened over Fashion Month, I've asked colleagues from across Monocle's editorial floor to come and join the discussion. First up, Associate Fashion Editor Grace Charlton will offer her expert eye.
I can picture the influencers in Paris at Café de Flore wearing those.
Shortly after, we will be joined by Monocle Radio's contributing editor Andrew Muller. Andrew is best known for covering foreign affairs, but after much convincing, he will be playing fashion critic for the day and bringing a refreshing perspective you'll certainly not hear anywhere else.
I, for one, would not wear this, but I also kind of doubt that anybody else is going to.
Finally, Fernando Augusto Pacheco will talk to us about the art of the runway show soundtrack.
It's the surprise element. And I'm the music curator of Monocle Radio. I want people to be surprised.
This and more coming soon on Monocle on Fashion. I've been quite resistant to the idea of these fashion weeks being a historic series of events. At the end of the day, when you step outside the fashion bubble, the majority of the end consumers are not aware of the internal changes taking place inside these houses. Still, it is significant that a whole new generation of designers have been handed the keys to some of the biggest luxury houses in the world, from Chanel, which is a 20 billion euro business, to Christian Dior, LVMH's second biggest earner. What these creative directors presented on the catwalk was supposed to be more than a line of seasonal clothes. Their collections were expected to reset the entire fashion system and even change the way we dress. Who succeeded? Who fell short? And is this really the beginning of a new chapter in fashion history? Associate Fashion Editor Grace Charlton and I share some initial thoughts. So should we get straight into it, I think? I'm so happy that we're back. I've been waiting to kind of be able to sit down and regroup and talk about what we saw and what we liked. I think we have to talk about what happened in Paris and some of our highlights. What stood out for you? Because there were so many debuts, one after the other, starting with Dior, Loewe, Balenciaga, all kind of culminating with Chanel on the Monday evening.
I think Chanel was really the perfect, and I felt it was the most emotional as well, the most exciting in terms of the switch up. I was very intrigued to see some of the debuts. I don't know, it's interesting. There's a lot of talk about pairing a creative director with a house, and sometimes you can really tell when the house is more powerful than the creative director or vice versa. And this was a season of debuts. There were 15. So it was a lot to process all at once. And I'm excited to see how over the coming years the language will develop and become a bit more personal to a house. For example, Pier Paolo Piccioli at Balenciaga, I could really see Demna's influence still lingering. I don't know if you felt that.
The Balenciaga was the one that I couldn't decide. Do I like it? Do I not? Some of it really felt like Balenciaga, like the sack dresses and also the colors. It was very much Pier Paolo's signature. And that's what I was expecting to see. But then you had these big glasses and the flip-flops and it felt like just remnants of Demna. And I understand he wanted to pay homage and not completely wipe the slate clean. But it felt a bit confused and disjointed to me. So I'm curious to see how he's going to develop it.
Yeah.
I was also this idea of mixed feelings and people debating whether they liked or hated a collection really was kind of most present when it came to Dior and Jonathan Anderson's women's wear debut. So I'm curious, how did you find that one? What did you feel when you saw the collection?
Oh, if I'm being completely honest, I was a little bit...
We're being very honest.
We're being very honest.
So go for it.
It wasn't for me. It just felt a little bit too Emily in Paris. Like it felt like very cliched and girly, but not in like a nice Simone Rocha kind of way, like more in a sort of, it was too like cutesy and it felt really impractical. I saw that and I really felt that it was a man designing for a woman. Like he doesn't understand, like how could you wear those outfits in real life? And I also understand that what you see on a runway is like more of a presentation of an idea versus what's going to be in the shop. But it really wasn't for me. And I do like Jonathan Anderson at Loewe and what he does. And I think he's really interesting and he's got like a very compelling vision. But, and he said it himself, it's not going to be for everyone. And it's going to take a few collections for something to develop. But what did you think?
I had mixed feelings as well. I was speaking to an editor right after coming out of the show, and he had absolutely loved it. And he said, this is where Dior needs to be going. It's a couture brand. They had gone way too mass, and this is something really special with these Rococo influences, and it's quite historical. But this was a man talking. When I looked at it, I mean, I like the bar jackets. There were some loafers that Nina Kristen, who's an amazing footwear designer, designed, and I loved. And I can see that you can break it up, and commercially, it's going to work because Jonathan Anderson, love him or hate him, he's very commercially savvy. But this very, like you say, impractical Marie Antoinette kind of style and those extremely exaggerated proportions, I just couldn't see how it fits in 2025, how it's going to translate off the catwalk. It might, but I can't see it yet.
I can picture the influencers in Paris at Café de Flore wearing those outfits. That that's sort of what I saw when I saw the collection. But I really did love the shoes and the bags, and I think you're right. They're going to sell extremely well.
Yeah, and it's a question that everyone has to ask. Do you want to design for the influencers at Café de Flore or for real women? And I think there are a lot of those bigger questions at the moment. It was this season with all these debuts was meant to be this big reset. It's not just these designers debuting spring summer 2026 collections, but they're meant to offer new ideas and visions about how we're going to dress from now on. And we went through the chapter of streetwear, and we never kind of quite, and we've just been in this in between now, and with the hope that this is going to mark a new chapter. And especially when looking at Chanel, a lot of people said that, yes, fashion is changing, it's moving forward, this is what we needed. Others think that it's a graveyard and there wasn't any fresh ideas. Your take, what do you think?
Oh, no, I think there were fresh ideas. I think that's a bit harsh. And, that sort of fashion industry chatter can get quite like downhearted very quickly, I find. No, I really thought there were some fresh ideas, and I can feel the sort of cosmic change coming on, and it's really exciting. I really loved like Louise Trotter at Bottega, those feathers, the textiles, the movement. I always love Anthony Vaccarello at Yves Saint Laurent. Yeah, I think people are too quick to just go like, there's nothing and it's dead and like all of this. What do you think?
I agree with you, and I think it's easy to say that, and online it works much better than when you have something nice or even neutral to say. I like the fact that there are debates, because for a while things were okay. It was quite beige and safe, and no one had anything good or bad to say. So I think debates are good. And it's nice when people come out of a show and they've absolutely hated a collection, even being a bit insulted by it, or they love it and they feel this desire to shop. I mean, some women after Chanel said, I've never felt this way since I was a kid, wanting to like save up and buy a jacket. So I think that's amazing. And no, it's I don't think fashion is dead. Have they completely reinvented the wheel?
No.
Not yet. But I did see for the first time the way people used color. There was optimism. There is a renewed energy. And this idea of, I think, if I were to find like a through line of everything that I saw, it was this idea of finally dressing for the occasion and a bit more of a celebratory mood. So I think that's a shift, and it's positive. And these designers need more time to develop their visions, but it is a good start for sure. You mentioned Louise Trotter for Bottega, which was another great debut. Again, divisive. Some people said it was boring and there was nothing to it. It was a bit heavy, all the plexiglass and the feathers. Others loved it and they said this is a collection designed for women. And it's important to touch on that as well, because there's 15 creative debuts, that the biggest houses, and I think Louise is the only woman, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yeah.
Do you feel that when you're looking at the collections that these are not clothes designed by women and there's a bit of a disconnect with the customer?
Yeah, I do. And I feel, especially in the aftermath of Virginie Viard and Maria Grazia Curie at Dior, Virginie Viard at Chanel and Maria Grazia Curie at Dior, and they were sort of really like chased out of their jobs in a way with online criticism and all of that. It did feel a little bit gendered, and it is frustrating. I'm excited for Meryl Roger to make her debut at Marni. I think that will be really interesting. And Renzo Rosso, when I spoke to him for the October issue of Monocle, he said that he really wanted it to be a woman because it's a brand, he said, that appeals to the women's minds. But the way that it didn't feel like these collections were designed for women really was in the way that it was sort of too sexy for everyday use, or like the heels looked really impractical and uncomfortable. There didn't seem to be any like focus on comfort, which I understand if you need to sell the fantasy. But yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about it? I feel really torn. I don't know.
I agree. And I think that in many cases you do see a fantasy of what a woman is, what these designers think a woman should be wearing or what they would want her to look like. Even Alaya, which I love the brand, but there were these fringed thigh-high socks, and I was just like, who will wear this above a jumper? There's an there's an element there where you just look at it and then you're just a little bit confused. But what I try to remember is that the creative directors at the big houses are just one part of the industry, and that there are in fact a lot of great women designers who just want to do it on their own terms. I visited the new shop of Carolina Castiglioni, who runs Plan C, and that was such a beautiful space that mixes objects, artisanal chocolate, magazines, and her collection, which is fun clothes that women, but also practical, that women like to wear. And there's also a lot of independent designers like Marie-Adam Linard in Paris. I think here in London we've got amazing designers like Simone Rocha and Roxanda Ilincic. So they do exist, but they're independent. It's smaller operations and they don't get as much visibility as a big Dior show or Chanel, and there's not as much press. But I think we have to make an effort to seek them out. There's a lot of discourse around fashion weeks and runway shows, but the voices that are mostly heard are those of fashion superfans or insiders who exist within the fashion bubble. This is why we wanted to bring on Andrew Muller, who might be more comfortable in the world of foreign affairs, but has very refreshing and biased takes when it comes to fashion too. So officially welcome to Monocle on Fashion. Usually you're the one asking questions, but I've been waiting for this moment.
I know. I am both delighted yet terrified to be here.
I think we need to give everyone some context. So you host the very popular Foreign Desk, but you often present fashion news stories on our various news shows, right?
I do, because I present the daily most days, and sometimes I do the briefing, and sometimes fashion items are included on that. I rather suspect, Natalie, as some sort of practical joke on the both of us by our colleagues. But yes, I would like to thank you in this public forum for propping me up through those and not at once reacting with any kind of indignation that you are having to explain fashion to somebody like me. It's probably not helpful for the listeners at this point that they can't actually see what I look like. But I don't look like the people who appear in our fashion pages.
No, but that's great. And even though you do say that you know nothing about fashion, you always ask very pointed, good questions whenever we do talk about fashion news. So I thought we've just had the most important historic fashion month. And there's, of course, a lot of critics that have their opinions, people online, people who are in the front row. But I thought you need to play fashion critic and tell us what you think, because it's quite refreshing. I think people exist within a fashion bubble and they know everyone's first name and have their informed opinions, but we want to hear something else. So Grace and I have handpicked very carefully a series of looks from the catwalks from Milan and Paris, all the big debuts.
Okay.
And we are going to do a little bit of show and tell.
So we're starting with Balenciaga by Pierpaolo Piccioli. For the listeners, it's a black sack dress with those big bug-like sunglasses.
See, I was going to say sack, but I kind of meant it as in a derisive sense, but that's actually what they were aiming for. I'm not sure she can see all that much, would be my concern with this. Is that an issue here if they thought about that? This looks a bit like an extremely upscale take on the kind of thing they put on horses to get them into the barriers when they don't want to go.
The blinkers.
Yes.
This is exactly what I was hoping for. Keep going.
The technical term. I, for one, would not wear this, but I also kind of doubt that anybody else is going to. I mean, did people like this?
I had mixed feelings. I mean, I would wear the dress. I love a sack dress, but maybe not the glasses. I think you're right on that one.
Or indeed, as we're calling them, the blinkers. Okay, what's next?
So moving on.
Yeah.
So this is Dario Vitale's first collection for Versace. Lots of 80s. He's going back to the founders' heyday. What do you think?
He does. Well, you say 1980s, and I was there at the time. He does look like the villain in an episode of Miami Vice.
Is that a good or a bad thing?
Well, I mean, I like bright colours. I do like bright colours. I'm not sure.
I can see you in this. You love a shirt.
I'm wearing one right now. What's he got around his neck? Is that some sort of ancient Egyptian amulet of some sort, or is it in fact? As I'm concerned, it's actually this is a mobile phone, isn't it?
It's not. It's not. It's a necklace.
Is it a necklace? I thought it was like a really fancy mobile phone on a really fancy mobile phone rope. And you just gave
Versace a new idea of what to do next season.
And the screen is facing in. I don't actually violently object to this. It's very high-waisted, it strikes me. Is that a thing people are doing now?
You know, they're dropping the waists, but clearly here, given the 80s inspiration, they went all the way.
I mean, I have mixed feelings. Actually, no, I don't have mixed feelings about the return of any kind of 80s fashion. My feelings are entirely unmixed. It was dreadful. But he is doing, at least he's not wearing a T-shirt under the suit jacket. I think we can be grateful for that. He is, however, slightly doing the 1980s rolling up the jacket sleeves thing, and it does look a little bit like he's about to strap on a guitar and play us some Mr. Mister. He must be stopped.
Okay, so I will take it as you're not a fan. Let's move on.
I've seen worse. Okay,
be nice here, Andrew. This is the finale look of the Chanel show. Big deal, new designer, new direction, and everyone in the audience, all the fashion people, fell head over heels.
Okay, and doing their bit for the environment by recycling bath mats, obviously. No, very, very colourful skirt she's got on here with, I mean, I'm not giving anyone prizes for the white T-shirt, but what is going on with the skirt here? I do actually quite like it.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Notwithstanding the whole recycled bath mats crack, it's bright and it's colourful. As before, I like bright colours. This went over quite well, did it? People like this?
Yeah. This is a
standing ovation. Everyone was thrilled. Everyone wants to go and buy the whole collection, and you like it too. So I think
that's obviously a winner. Okay.
This was Grace's pick, so I'll let her walk you through it.
Maison Margiela by Glenn Martens, Belgian designer. It's a little bit out there. What do you think of the mouthpiece?
Well, I was going to sort of say that the whole sort of Nazi villain vibe with the leather greatcoat, I'm not Massively keen on. What is actually going on with the? How do you even explain the mouthpiece? The model is wearing one of those things that dentists use to prise your lips apart before they start removing your wisdom teeth. And indeed, she's bearing the kind of expression people usually do before they're about to have a wisdom tooth removed. Is that what is going on?
I think it's
there?
a statement on like uniformity and sort of being silenced. But I agree. I think it has like slight shades of high school theatre edgy play to it.
I think that's extremely well put. Yeah, not massively keen.
Okay, next. We've got Louise Trotter at Bottega Veneta. It's a yellow look with sort of a fluffy jacket and a nice skirt.
And fun fact, that's recycled plexiglass. So on the runway as they were moving, it actually looked really beautiful because it was kind of moving with the models, great music, good color.
I can see that. Would the top half here go quite well with the recycled bath mat skirt we saw earlier? I mean, it would be a bold look.
It will be able. No, but it's all about the balance, Andrew. You have a statement on the skirt and a T-shirt on top. You've got a statement top. You have something more discreet at the bottom.
Okay, that's where I've been going wrong, clearly. You don't want to literally overstate things. What is she holding in her hand? It looks like one of those guns that you use to put prices on things in grocery shops.
It's just a little clutch.
Okay.
For your phone and lipstick.
Or indeed your price gun. Okay, yeah, I don't object violently to that. That's fine.
And now the final picture.
So this is the most divisive collection of them all. Jonathan Anderson's women's wear debut for Christian Dior. Some people absolutely loved it, others hated it.
It makes all these female models look like they're the wrong shape.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, it does. Or was that the point?
Yeah, he's kind of known for that.
Okay.
Is that a good thing? Is it making you kind of curious? What is it?
Massively, I have to say. I think these people were probably all pretty much the right shape to start with, or is this what they are driving towards? Is a point being made here?
Well, our biggest critique, we were talking about it earlier, is that it didn't seem very practical as a collection. Yeah,
but I mean, have you ever been to a fashion show you couldn't say that about? I mean, even I understand that that's not really the point of your haute couture, is it?
Yeah, it felt more couture than just regular fashion.
But no, these are obviously impractical outfits. Those hats on a windy day, in particular.
Okay, so no Dior hat for you next season.
No, not this year.
Okay, so this was Spring Summer 26 Fashion Critic by Andrew Muller. Chanel was the winner.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I'm happy with that, and they can put that on their posters.
Perfect. And now I want to talk to you about something a little bit more serious. We're going to change the tone a little bit. We've seen we're speaking about trends and how to get dressed and the debuts, but this is all happening, and it has been happening the last few years against a whole messy geopolitical landscape. And some of the designers, more the independent, younger ones, have actually used the platform to make political statements as well. And then what they're saying is that fashion cannot be divorced from what's going on in the world. It actually needs to be a reflection. But when it comes especially to these bigger houses that have the big conglomerates behind them and investors and shareholders, what we've seen is just pure silence. What do you think? Do you think they need to just focus on the clothes and the fantasy and escapism? Or is this a missed opportunity when millions of people are watching to kind of raise questions and talk about what's going on in the world?
I mean, I think, because I'm aware that this argument doesn't just happen in fashion, it happens in music, the visual arts, cinema, sport, wherever you like. I think it has to be up to the individual creator. I can certainly see the argument, and indeed respect the argument, that somebody could make about fashion, as indeed they could about anything else, that it's supposed to be an escape from all that terrible stuff outside. It's supposed to be fun and frivolous and silly, if that's what you want to do. But by the same token, this is an incredibly sort of vague, wishy-washy response. If you are sufficiently moved within that realm to want to make a statement of some sort, I don't see any reason whatsoever why you shouldn't do it. And it doesn't strike me that fashion is any less valid an arena to do that than any other. I mean, it was put very well, and it's one of those things where I will admit I kind of led the interviewee to the answer somewhat, but I believe he was entirely sincere. And this isn't about fashion; it's more about music. But I was in Odessa in Ukraine earlier this year at a security conference. Part of the security conference was there was a lovely sort of outdoor dinner party in this beautiful sort of old courtyard, and there was a surprise musical guest introduced, which was the Kalush Orchestra, Ukraine's Eurovision winners of a couple of years ago. And after that, I was introduced to the fearsome commander of the Georgian Legion and one of the major commanders of the foreign forces fighting in Ukraine. And he'd just literally driven into Odessa from the front lines that day, and he was driving back the following. And I was just saying to him, is it weird for you, sort of coming from literally fighting in the thick of Europe's biggest land war in the last 80 years, to come to a cocktail party and see the Kalush Orchestra play and then drive back? And he just shrugged and said, evenings like this is what the war is about. You know, if a man cannot come to a medieval courtyard in Odessa, dress up as a carpet and jump up and down to a Eurovision-winning pop song, what are any of us doing here? I paraphrase him only slightly. But yeah, I think it's entirely up to the individual creator. But am I right in imagining that within fashion there's an awful lot of the nervousness that you see in sport in particular, Drake's trying to say we must keep politics out of it?
Very much so, but I also find that they're quite selective. I don't know what you think, Grace. Like when Black Lives Matter happened, everyone was very vocal because it felt safe to do so, that collectively there was one opinion. Even with Ukraine, I mean, there were protests outside the shows. Some designers put flags of Ukraine on people's seats. But as things got more complicated, I mean, no one dare to even address what's going on in Gaza, for example, aside from very, very few designers. Up until this day, I think I spotted one designer, the creative director of Tod's, with a tiny pin on his shirt in Milan. Some of the younger designers are using Palestinian textiles or working with artists from the West Bank, for example, but it's so limited and it's so niche. And like you're right, the overall approach was, let's stay quiet. It's too risky. We're going to get cancelled. We should just pretend it's not happening. But it's been really difficult for the designers who think, what's the point of doing all of this when people are dying? So everyone is split quite a lot, and there is a lot of criticism that such levels of excess and luxury are tone deaf at this moment in time. So that's why I wanted to get your take about how should a brand approach it.
That example you mentioned, though, of people actually deciding, well, I'll work with Palestinian creators. And that way you're not making an explicit statement. You're making a statement, but you're not making an explicit statement. And that's something that kind of approach has always appealed to me, because it's a long time myself since I've spent any time in either the West Bank or Gaza. I mean, it was, 20 years ago. But I do remember thinking at a time when I was going to the Middle East a lot more, that if people are sympathetic to the Palestinian cause, which is a reasonable thing to be sympathetic to, the best way to demonstrate that, the most practical way to demonstrate that it's not to donate to charity, it's not to protest on their behalf, it's buy the stuff they make. Yeah. Work with them, help them develop things. Because there is certainly no shortage of Palestinian people talented in this and in many other fields. And I think that's a far more practical and weirdly far less controversial way to get involved.
A big thanks to Andrew and Grace for joining me here in the studio and sharing their valuable insights. To wrap things up, we wanted to touch on another key element of the fashion show, soundtracks. This season, the music at the shows felt particularly strong, and it accompanied this feeling of excitement and anticipation around all the debuts. Joining me to discuss the best show tunes is Monocle's Fernando Augusto Pacheco.
First of all, I have to say that I've really enjoyed the soundtracks. As you know, I'm a big fan. When I look at a show, I don't look just at the clothes, but I use my Shazam. Like, what are they playing, But this year was more fun because for a few years, I don't know if you noticed that there's been quite a lot of kind of techno or very kind of harsh sounding soundtracks. This year, I think things soften up a little bit. Mm-hmm. One trend that we were discussing is a lot of kind of 70s music. I think we saw that with Ralph Lauren playing Bee Gees, More Than a Woman as well. We saw with Coach, with Elton John, that kind of 70s vibe. But that's just one of the trends. I think she's a New York designer, Sandy Liang. She played like a very camp song by Hilary Duff.
I saw that. That was such a blast from the past.
I loved it, because Hilary Duff, she's not my favorite singer, but that song in particular, I think, designers should also have some fun with the music they do. And if I can mention one more, of course, there will be Chanel, which we'll be discussing later, is a chapter apart. But I always love the Saint Laurent ones. I think it's very consistent. And I like the level of detail because they ask Sebastian, a musician, to make the whole mix, and usually they sell it on vinyl. So hopefully they will be releasing that very soon. And this year, as usual, very Saint Laurent, kind of leather, Paris, chic, 80s. I think Mirwais was a bit involved, the French music producer. So Saint Laurent is always fantastic.
I agree with you. And the brands that you mentioned, especially a brand like Saint Laurent, I think they're masters at 360 branding, whether it's the show set, the invitation, and then there's always a collaboration with someone and they make an incredible sound that just changes the whole experience when you're at a show. When you start looking at people, and that does happen at Saint Laurent shows, at Prada shows as well. I'm a huge fan of what they do with music. You just start seeing people as the show goes on kind of dancing a bit on their seat, and you can tell that people are in a good mood, and the show they're enjoying the show. So it's quite an electric feeling when you're in that room. Tell me what you thought about this Prada soundtrack. That it was Moments in Love, The Art of Noise, because that was my favorite of the season. And I remember waking up the next morning and it was just replaying in my head because it was so distinct, and the show with all the colors was such a highlight of Milan, even though it wasn't a big debut, that it all kind of seemed to be aligned, no?
80s classic, and it's interesting because I think the soundtrack's part of the brand's identity, and I think The Art of Noise, the band, this very 80s kind of iconic, it's very Prada as well, because they were part of the kind of the synth pop movement in the 80s, but they were not too obvious, perhaps, as if they picked New Order, as much as I love New Order as well. But, they wanted... It's very Prada. It is, popular, but it's a little bit left field always as well. So I think he was a great choice. Also one of my favorites.
And why do you think there's this return to going away from techno to something softer, 70s, 80s? Why are we feeling this sense of nostalgia and softening?
It's all getting together. I think even you, perhaps looking at the analysis, you see a lot of color. Even I was talking about Saint Laurent, of course, a lot of leather, the usual blacks, but also they had this amazing kind of nylon textured kind of clothing, and like with bright oranges as well. So I don't know if it's a form of escapism, but it's a cycle. I think maybe people want some enjoyment as well. I know, we discuss politics a little bit here on Monocle Fashion, but I wouldn't say just escapist. I think it's beautiful, right? We all need some brightness in our lives, and I think maybe people are a little bit tired as well when people are talking about quiet luxury all the time. I think we can still be quiet luxury, but with color as well. Sometimes it feels to me that you're either like a logo lover or quiet luxury. There's so much more in between, don't you know what I mean?
Absolutely, yeah. And actually a Japanese retailer told me something really interesting, that color is the new logo. So we don't need to go back to this very flashy look, that's all about the logos, but you can play with color, you can make your look a little bit more interesting, because you're right, I think it had gotten either a little bit too serious, the music was harsh, and everything was beige and homogeneous. Yes. So it's nice to see the clothes softening up, we're all dressing up a bit more, and the music is a bit more dancey. And we cannot talk about show music and soundtracks without speaking about Michel Gaubert and Chanel. He is the mastermind behind some of the most incredible soundtracks, and he did it again, this time at the big Chanel show that we've recently seen. Tell me, you've interviewed Michel as well. Tell me, what is it about him? What's his magic formula?
He's legendary. I mean, he did not only Chanel, but other amazing brands throughout his career. And this year he released a memoir, which I would recommend everyone to go and buy it. So I decided to do an interview with him to discuss music because, you know, he was, I mean, one of my music heroes, if I may say. And one thing that I like about Michel is that it's the surprise element. And, you know, I'm the music curator of Monocle Radio. I want people to be surprised as well. So, of course, you know, we have a style. We like to play bossa nova, international music, light electropop. But sometimes let's play some disco from Hong Kong in the 70s. You need that element of surprise. And I think Michel does that very well with Chanel. He does play Eurodance hits with classical music. And they can all go together in a way. So you don't need to be one or another. I like that element of clash. And this time with Chanel, because of course, they have a new creative director. So it was Michel Gaubert and Le Motel as well, which is a musician, which I think used to work at Bottega in the past as well. So I think it was more of a collaboration this year. And I mean, Natalie, you were there. When they played Snap's Rhythm is a Dancer, I freaked out. I was watching it live online, but you were there, right?
I was there, and I was looking at the clothes and getting really excited, but then you start hearing Rhythm is a Dancer as the clothes keep getting better and better, and every model walks, and it truly was electric, and everybody was feeling it and getting so excited, and you can see big smiles in the room, and I do think the soundtrack had a big role to play in just making the whole experience. You had this planets, like a whole planetarium above you, and that song, and it just kind of all came together. So no, it was really well done, I think.
And it wasn't the original version; it was a special version.
That's what made it good, no?
Yes, that's what, because it was a classical music version. I think it was an orchestra in Berlin that did that specific track. So of course I found out the track and I did download the track. So when on my commute to work today, actually I was listening to it non-stop.
Great. So if you were to recommend 3 top tracks for people from the shows this season to listen to, maybe one is Rhythm is a Dancer.
The classical music version, okay?
What would be the other 2 from everything you've heard, since you've been following it so carefully?
I'm following my heart, okay? I'm choosing Sandy Liang and her Hilary Duff surprise, just because it gave me so much joy and pleasure. And I think Sébastien with the Saint Laurent track, and I think there was a track called Paris, Paris, by Mirwais, which I think was one of his tracks from the 80s as well. A little bit electropunk for you. So we have everything, camp pop, electropunk, and the amazing Chanel song.
A big thanks to Faye for joining me. And that's it for today's show. Make sure you subscribe and stay tuned. We have more designer interviews coming from next Monday. Today's episode was edited and produced by Lily Austin and Mariella Bevan. I'm Natalie Theodosi. Thank you so much for listening.